on too.
Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, Lily just wanted to extend the committee's condolences on the loss of your husband. Our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm going to begin by just reading the equity statement, as we do at the BPL before meetings. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, and it's a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We're committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm that this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement will take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. So Pamela, what's next? Do you do the roll call at this point?
Yes, and also if I could just make note that if anyone would like to leave a public comment, please sign up via the chat. We will close the chat at 9 o'clock. I'll just read the last names, Ben, if that's okay, to make everything go faster.
Okay.
So Asim.
Here.
Berman.
Here.
Bradley.
Here.
Dames.
Here.
Enriquez let me know that he was going to be out for a conflict. Fay.
Here.
Hawkins.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
And Leonard is absent as well due to a conflict. All set. We have a quorum, Ben.
Okay. What about the minutes? You doing that, or?
Yep, I just need you to send out a motion to accept the minutes and ask if there's any edits or anything to them.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the meetings of the last meeting?
So moved.
I
Second.
need a second. There we go. Thank you, Matthew. I'll just run through your last names again and to approve the minutes. Asim,
Aye.
Berman,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Dames,
Yes.
Fay.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Grace, you weren't at the last meeting, so I'm just gonna, sorry, forgive me.
Okay.
Hawkins?
That's all right.
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
so moved. Back to you, Ben.
So I believe, Michael, it's over to you to review the library's strategic priorities.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Colford. I'm the Director of Library Services for the library. I'm stepping in for David, who couldn't attend today. And I understand the first thing we wanted to just review the library's strategic principles. These are principles and a strategic roadmap that are a bridge between our Compass principles that are now several years old. The Compass strategic principles are still strong, but of course, the meat, the goals and things that were in the Compass have been accomplished, and we've moved on to this bridge phase, which will take us to a full strategic plan in the next several years that we'll be working on. But these principles will help to bridge us to that point. So I'll just go over them quickly and review them. They've been refined and reviewed perhaps since some of you have last seen them. Our first one, as in our welcoming statement, is to become an anti-racist organization and build a culture of respect. Our second strategic principle centers on programs and services that build and maintain equity. Those are the day-to-day programs and services we provide to the public. Our priorities right now, which are aligned with the city's priorities, are youth engagement and workforce development. So a lot of our programming falls under those two areas. Our third principle is to build and maintain and activate collections, which is why you were all here. Those involve our special collections, our extensive research collections, and also our circulating and electronic collections as well. Our fourth principle is to expand our reach, awareness, and impact with fiscal sustainability, to let people know we're here, to let people know what we're doing, and remain fiscally sustainable. The next principle we have is inspiring spaces, well-maintained and with modern infrastructure. We have a very extensive capital campaign. The city's been very generous to us over the years. I'm sure you're all aware, we're working on a master plan for our McKim building. So there's a lot going on around keeping our spaces well-maintained, modern, and inspiring. Our next principle is to create patron and staff connections and services through technology. We all know that technology is more and more important for everything we do. We just started launched in partnership with the BHA, a long-term lending program that would provide laptop and hotspot for people who do not have connectivity at home. That's a big project we're working on. And then our final principle is to expect the unexpected, which we added just before or several months before we shut down for COVID. So I don't know if we were prescient or what was going on, but it was a good one for us to include. And it's something that's always something we always need to keep in mind. So those are the strategic principles we're operating right now, as I said, until we have the opportunity to do a full-blown strategic plan. Happy to answer any questions. And otherwise, Ben, I will throw it back to you.
Expecting the unexpected. That's a broad one. You always got to be on your toes, right?
Yeah, we want to make sure we're agile and prepared for any crises that come up. You can never be completely prepared, but having a crisis plan certainly helps.
Yeah. How are we doing on COVID generally? I trust there have not been another one of those incidents that where people came in off the street.
Well, not COVID related, no, but we are dealing right now. Some of you may have read in the paper on social media, there's been a rash across the country of First Amendment audits where people come into public spaces and film staff. And if staff object, they try to make a point that there's free, they have the right to film people and because it's a public space. We're actually working with our legal team in the city to determine the actual legalities and how much privacy we do have in libraries. We're all very confident that patrons who are using our library do have the right to privacy for the work they're doing, but as public employees, the staff don't have the same level of privacy. So we're working with our legal teams to know exactly what we can do and say when people come in to do this. We've had a couple of visits in our branches around this.
You think of a First Amendment as being a free speech issue, people wanting to come in and make a statement. Why would they want to film employees of the library, I wonder?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, many of them are just really trying to gather sensationalistic videos and post them on social media to get people riled up about this kind of thing. It's been happening across the country since 2020, really. It's just started to happen in libraries here, but apparently like police departments and other public government offices have been dealing with this for the last year or so, even here in Boston.
Michael,
So
is there, I'm sorry, Ben. I had a question. Is there any sense that there's some particular organization behind these campaigns, or are these just isolated individuals? How's this working? Do we have any idea?
So thus far here in Boston, it's been a single person who's gone to a couple of branches. He does have a following on social media that could be anywhere in the country, we don't know. But so far here, it's been fairly limited. And we haven't seen any evidence of an organization.
And so what happens? We call the police and escort the guy away?
Well, we're trying not to call the police because we don't have a final ruling with our legal team about whether what they're doing is illegal or not. The best advice we get from everywhere we speak to is just to not engage and just continue doing our work. And if they don't have anything interesting to film, they'll get bored and leave after a few minutes. It's when you engage with them and start to argue with them that they like to film that and put that on social media.
Right.
And the idea of de-escalation is so key to our principles.
Absolutely.
And, so that's a good thing. I was in Rochester, New York, and my friend who works at the Penfield Library, also, they've been having incidents at their library. So I was surprised when she volunteered that information to me about the First Amendment. So like that. these principles, is there anything specific, Michael and Beth, that, you know, that we should be thinking about for our special collections? Is there a particular lens?
I'll let Beth take that one.
Sure. So I think there are several of these that have very direct connections with the work that we're doing in special collections. Starting with equity and thinking about how we describe our collections and make them available more broadly. We have been doing so much work around, in particular, maintaining and activating the collections that we already do hold, whether it's through the intellectual control and the description, whether it's through providing more public access, which I'll talk about in a minute with the rare books and special collections reopening. Certainly inspiring spaces. That, again, I think is something that we are really looking at, how we provide both spaces that support and steward the collections that we hold, but also provide a good public experience, which I think what our opening this year is going to be majorly a step forward in that, as it relates to both experiences for staff and for public. And then the connections and services through technology. We are launching a number of new technologies this year that will enable us to provide both better service for patrons, but also better tracking of our collections. So there's a lot of this, I think, that is very relevant to the work that we're doing in special collections and across the library.
Beth, what would be some of the services to technology that you plan to launch?
So we're launching two actually new systems this year. One is Aeon, which is a materials tracking technology, which enables us to essentially follow an object from its place on the shelf all the way to service, whether it's with a patron, into the conservation lab, down to digitization, and back onto the shelf, which offers us a lot more control over where materials are, but also offers us a lot more statistical information about how things are used and when they're used, and really will enable us to make some major decisions. And the other technology we're launching this year is Collection Space, which is, I think I talked in a previous meeting about Archive Space, which will be the platform on which the platform we are creating finding aids and discovery tools for our archival collections. Collection Space is also a Lyrasis product, and we'll do the same for our visual materials. So our prints, photographs, works on paper. We have done major inventories with these collections in sort of a low-tech form through spreadsheets, which is a wonderful way of collecting information, but is not a great way of controlling information in relational databases. And so we're going to be migrating that this summer. We've just signed that contract. Matthew, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I do, and that gets us both for you, Beth, and Michael. Looking at these principles and circling back to, I think, a theme that Ben had put forward about expecting the unexpected and the COVID implications of that. Could you give us a sense of what it has been like to sort of get back into full operation mode after COVID, assuming after COVID sort of suggests that we're post-COVID, and I'm not sure that we are. But could you give us a sense of sort of the process of doing that and some of the burdens associated with that process? And I ask that being in a position where I've run two separate research libraries through COVID. So I know I'm struggling, but I wanted to get a sense from both of you what it's been like to sort of unwind and get back into workflows and such. Thank you.
Sure, Beth, do you want me to start? Well, of course, it's been very interesting. And I think we have reached a point now where we're trying really hard to get back to as much semblance of normality as we can. We still, we follow all our cues from the city, what the city has us do regarding, mask requirements, social distancing, things like that. All of those limitations have been removed. We do still recommend that people wear masks in the library, and much of the staff does, and a percentage of the public do as well. We have started doing in-person programming again. That's been coming back fairly slowly, but we do expect by the summer to see that kick up to back to almost normal levels. We've also started to see more and more people come in to use the buildings. We do feel that the last time I checked, and this was about a month ago, so hopefully it's increased by then, we were at about 50% of where we would be before COVID. This does vary from branch to branch and location to location. Once we get past any potential hurdles such as variants and surges that may happen in the next few weeks, months, we're thinking maybe towards the end of the summer, we hope to do a larger campaign welcoming people back to the library. We do understand that this will take work to bring people back to really get back to the levels we want to be and go beyond them. We do certainly have a lot to offer and we do want people to return, but we won't, when we feel completely comfortable, we will do a big campaign to get those people back. Beth, anything to add from your point of view?
I think while no one would ever have wished this pandemic at any point in our history, I think for special collections, it came at what was probably a better point than others in the sense that we were already closed for public service because of renovations. And so we had already created a staff structure and work schedule that was dedicated to really doing all the behind the scenes work that we weren't able to support while we were maintaining open hours and staffing desks. We have used this time in particular for doing a lot of retro conversion work through our card catalogs and scanning to make access to our information available across the country and across the world. And what we're finding is through reference questions, which we continue to get and we can continue to serve throughout the closures, people are finding the content that we've just recently put online. And in fact, particularly as it relates to our manuscript collections, we're really seeing actually the bulk of our reference questions are coming in through related to materials that we've put online for discovery recently. We are also maintaining a lot of researchers are not in a position to travel for a variety of reasons, and we are trying to provide more remote access, whether it is, again, limited scanning on demand. We have the ability, even within our special collections departments, not through our digital services, which is more of a large scale, large stream, but we are able to provide high quality study scans for a lot of patrons who just need access to a few materials to move on with their work. We're even doing that with the collection return now. As things are coming back, we've been maintaining a list of what people have been looking for, and we are going back through historic reference questions and serving up those materials as best we can. It's going to be interesting because we've been closed to the public for close to 4 years. We are opening a special collections reading room, not just for rare books, but for special collections writ large. We are going to have a learning curve to understand what people are going to want to see and access, but we've already recognized by doing things like focusing on things like digitization of film negatives, which has both a preservation need in the sense that those we know are more prone to degradation than other types of media that we hold, but also you can't use a negative in a reading room in any reasonable way, and by providing by prioritizing collections that actually are not usable in reading room context and we've both been putting out thousands upon thousands of our photographic materials even during the span of the pandemic, and we're noticing again people are discovering things they didn't even know to ask for, and that for us has really emphasized put out as much as we can.
Michael, with uncertainties remaining surrounding the pandemic, can you give us a sense of how hiring is going overall?
Thank you, Ben. I actually was going to mention that. So one of the biggest impacts of COVID wasn't even related directly to the virus, but the city put a hiring freeze while we were in that shutdown mode. So for about a year, we weren't able to do any hiring, and we had quite a few retirements or people moving on to different jobs or people changing their lifestyles because of the virus. So we have been, since really almost a year now, when the hiring freeze lifted, we've been doing a lot of hiring, and we average pre-COVID about 30 vacancies at any given time. That's just a normal everyday vacancy. At our high point, we were over 100 vacancies, and we're down to about 60 vacancies right now. The reason why it's so challenging is a lot of our positions are filled internally, which creates another vacancy. So this has been part of the reason why we've been slow to return to our full hours, although we are almost there now. We're going to be opening on Sundays in May here at the Central Library. And then all that will be left is some expansion of hours and branches. But we do need to go a little bit further with our filling of positions, but we're on the right track.
People demanding more flexibility in terms of working at home?
So the city is working on a pilot program, a 6-month pilot program on remote work, based on the fact that we successfully did so during the pandemic. They're bargaining with the 2 unions right now, and we hope to, since it is a pilot program where they want to gather information and see how well it works, we would like to be as aggressive as possible with to take advantage of it with our staff. There are certainly some equity issues around it because not all positions are able to be done at home. So we want to think broadly and be creative so we can prove that this can work for people all across the system. So we are looking towards that with the city.
Mm-hmm. And are residency requirements still an issue for you in hiring new people?
It
who might
is.
live in Cambridge or something.
Yes, it is. And I know that's always a topic of discussion, but it's still in place. But yes, it can be an issue. It makes it difficult for us to attract people who want to work for us.
And sometimes you seek waivers to get around it, or no?
There is a process. It's fairly difficult, but there is a process to apply for waivers. I think we have taken advantage of that here and there.
So what I'm just hearing this. So even if somebody lives in literally across the bridge in Cambridge, they would be unable to work for BPL because they're not City of Boston resident.
That's right. They have to live in Boston proper.
Okay, thank you.
And continuing the thread of hiring, since we're on this topic, we have made some great strides in special collections. I know that at the last meeting I had talked about how many vacancies we have, and we still continue to have some areas in great need, but we also have some really exciting things to report, particularly in our archives team. So we, until 2 years ago, had no archives team. We hired Eve Niger, our lead archivist. We had an archivist on staff who moved over to the archives team, Kim Reynolds. As of early March, we hired our third archivist, Margaret Peachy from Tufts, who was a digital archivist in digital collections and archives at Tufts. And we're thrilled to, and that was through the support of the associates. And then we're thrilled to welcome our fourth archivist, Crystal Rogers, who's going to be joining us in June. She is currently the assistant labor archivist at the Labor Archives of Washington and at University of Washington. So she's going to be relocating to Boston, but that will give us, again, a full team, which is really exciting. The other major hire that we have made since we last met is our conservation officer. We have a new, so this is in our brand new conservation lab in the Rare Books and Manuscripts department. Mary French from the Northeast Document Conservation Center in North Andover. Some of you may know that firm, and we use them fairly extensively for external conservation work. Mary will be joining us at the end of this month. She brings extensive skill sets related to conservation, and actually has worked on some of the BPL's rarest items while in her current role at NEDCC. So we're thrilled to welcome her in a few weeks, and that will have then our conservation team fully filled. We do continue to have vacancies, and we've also hired a library assistant in the arts team, and so that team is also fully filled. Rare books and manuscripts continues to be a challenge for us due to retirements and transfers. So we have some open positions right now. We have 3 open positions, and there may be 1 to come. And so we again are trying to make sure that we're getting fully staffed before we fully open to the public. Also, just sorry, yeah, please go ahead.
No, this is just a question that I don't know the answer to that I should know. So you say archivist and the archives, and sometimes we talk about the collection.
Mhm.
Are those the same things? Is the archive is a smaller part of a bigger collection?
Mhm. It's a smaller part of a lot of bigger collections. So, and one, I think it will be really useful to bring in that team to do a presentation for this group, potentially even this fall once they get sort of their feet under them. But it's really archives are everywhere at BPL, and they really serve as it's the body of records related to a person or an organization or an institution. And BPL has been collecting archival material since our founding. You know, if you can look at major collections that we know as, you know, collections that are held within specific departments. So for instance, the arts department holds the Society of Arts and Crafts records, including things that include original works of art, but also the records of that organization. They hold the Connick Foundations. They hold the Connick, Charles Connick collection, which was a stained glass maker in Boston and did some of the most significant works of stained glass throughout the country. Includes not only their business records, but also includes original gouaches and even stained glass from their work. We've never treated it like an archive, meaning a unit that a researcher would look at together, and we've never organized it according to archival principles. Rare Books has a ton of archives. We also have a ton of what we call orphan collections, which are collections that were brought in that don't have a curatorial home, that need to be described and administered. Michael and I have talked fairly recently about the Filene's marketing archives that came to us, you know, several decades ago, and frankly are in the same boxes in which they were delivered to us because there was no one to process that collection. This team will be doing that work. We have a lot of collections that we've treated differently because we are a library and not an archive, that we may want to rethink how we describe them. The anti-slavery collection is one because the letters are interconnected. It's not letter. It's letters that have a lot of intersection that understanding them in the context of each other is really important. And so this team, it's great for us to, for the first time in our history, this is a specialization within the field that we've never had on staff. And so we're really excited to have this team, but they have 500 collections that they've identified to date that fall under this purview. And some have extensive paper inventories. Some may have no information because they were brought in without a lot of the background information that might have been useful. And so that's going to be, I think, really exciting for us.
Great, helpful. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Beth. Any other comments or questions before we move on to the next item? Okay, Pamela, I think the next item is the going back over the draft charter, correct?
Yes. Can you go to the next slide for me, Jay? These are across 2 slides, just so you know.
Okay. In the last meeting, we discussed the proposed charter, which is the purposes under which we operate through the committee. And there were a few suggestions to tweak the language, and this is the current draft we have now. I'm just going to read it quickly, and people can follow along on the slide. So the purpose of the charter is to advocate for BPL special collections, their long-term care and activation, and for their centrality in the execution of the BPL's overall mission. 2, to review and advise all relevant policies that affect stewardship of and access to special collections. To receive reports on and recommendations for issues affecting special collections and comment as appropriate. to work to foster and enhance alignment between special collections, library services, and the needs of BPL's communities of users, to support and promote greater access to and engagement with special collections in accordance with approved BPL strategy, to provide recommendations to the Board of Trustees on special collections matters requiring full board approval, to advise of potential new funding and/or partnership opportunities in support of special collections stewardship and outreach. Number 8, and this was the one that we had tweaked the language a bit, to acknowledge and foster affiliate and strategic partnership relationships that have a focus on advancing the library's priorities for and work with special collections, to support the development of a long-range strategic plan for the special collections departments consistent with the library's overall strategic planning documents and processes, and finally, to advocate for and support capital project initiatives in service of the special collections. So I think we just want to reaffirm that. I'm told a vote is not needed to formally approve this in light of a prior discussion. But does anybody want to add anything? Any other thoughts? Okay.
I'd like to just remind people why we invited you here to be on this committee, again, in support of this, and why we're talking about the charter, is that, as you know, we've always had, and Lily can tell you, we've always had the Special Collections Committee. And because of the stature and the prominence of our special collections with Beth and with Laura, we really are moving into a different phase. So therefore, the role of this committee and the composition of the committee has changed. So before, we relied on a committee that really provided outside experts. They were outside experts in particular areas. And now, you know, as you look among yourselves, you can see we really want the people who love special collections, whether it's with to be engaged. And the key word is to be advocating and carrying the word. You know, I really think of all of you as ambassadors for our special collections into your various communities. So this first phase of the committee and getting up to the charter has been about coming to an understanding of what we do, an appreciation of what we do before, you know, we really can move into some action. Matthew, you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I think these are, I love the charter and the principles. I did want to sort of say a few words just about, because I've been in the special collection space directly or indirectly for a while, that and you all probably know this, but I think it's worth repeating. This is hard work. The whole notion of stewarding special and distinctive collections and making them accessible and doing programs around them. This is hard work. And so thank you again to Michael and Beth for their past and future work. What I would also say is that as we're sort of moving, especially past the 2 years of COVID, I'd like to be in a position not only to advocate for making these available, but also for the staff to be able to do the work that they need to do. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it just is going to take a certain amount of time. I think if I'm not mistaken, the marathon is coming up. I think it's next week. And one of the things that's going to happen is that there are people that have been off their daily mileage allotment and haven't been as diligent with their training. And they're going to get out there and they might pull a hamstring. And I think part of what this group, one of the ways in which this group can help special collections in the library overall is to help them pace themselves in a way so that when we go out and we start re-engaging with the public in various ways, that they don't pull the proverbial or operational hamstring. Thank you.
Good analogy on the hamstring. Okay, so we'll consider that, I guess, formally adopted. And is it on to Beth now, Pamela?
Great, and
Yes.
oh, sorry, Pamela. So I just wanted to give an update, not on the charter, but on where we were. And thank you, Matthew, for the for the support and for potentially the knee brace as as we get out there, because it is true. I think so much of our work has been behind the scenes, and it's hard to tell the story of the day-to-day in the larger context when so much of it does seem to be sort of behind the veil. But I'll tell you a few really exciting things that have been happening. So the collection move, the return of the collections from offsite is happening as we speak. As of yesterday, we have 215,000 books back on shelf. That is the product of less than 6 weeks of move. So again, if we look a little tired, there's a reason for that, but there's also euphoria behind that. I will tell you that for staff members being with the collections after them being gone so long, it's like welcoming family home. And it's welcoming family home to a really, really nice new house. So far that means about almost 20,000 linear feet of shelving is now filled with collections. We've also returned over 2,500 document cases, which is about 800 linear feet of manuscript collections and archival collections. So this is a really intense process. We also have done so much work to make sure that everything is going to, we know where everything is at every moment, and it is going to, everything has a barcode and everything is being scanned to shelf. And it is really, I think, heartening for us to have that level of physical control to our materials, which in the history of this institution, we've never been able to have. The music collection is also returning, and over 23 items from that collection, particularly the Alan Brown collection, which is the signature music collection we have in special collections, has been shelved. That is a major portion of what will be between 32 and 35,000 items from the music collection when complete. So our timing is that we expect the major bulk of collection to be on shelf in the coming few weeks, which has been that is a massive milestone for us institutionally and for us as a department. There is additional work that will need to be done because there is some lingering missing shelving that we, for a variety of reasons, is still been on order that we expect back in June. So that is moving us into a what does it look like when we reopen. I don't have specific dates, but the plan is essentially that we'll be opening for limited public service this summer. What that looks like really depends the timing on the above and when we actually can complete the moves and when we can get the technologies up and going to actually track materials in the reading room. It also depends completion of our procedural documentation, hiring, and conversations with our two collective, bargaining units around the reopening. But that is all happening behind the scenes. And we are really excited to be in what I consider to be the final phase of this. I know that some of you, actually most of you, have not been on tours of the space yet. There are opportunities through a variety of paths for us to get you behind the scenes to see what we have. And I know we'll be working on really introducing you to the magnificence that is sort of the new, both physical storage locations, but also what we'll be having in terms of our public spaces. Priscilla, you have been on it. I know you have been one of the few behind the scenes tours, and I know it was really exciting to have you part of that. So if there, I don't know if there are any questions specifically about that, either what's happening with us or what's planned, but certainly we'll be sharing a lot more information as we go forward there.
I would just reinforce that the tour was great. It's really impressive, and anybody who hasn't had a chance to stop by and take a look, I'd urge you to do that. I'm at missing shelving. I assume those are supply chain issues.
They are there. It's a combination of 7 miles of steel. Shelving requires a lot of material. And the other thing is that in some cases we weren't able to plan for specific shelving in place until we completed all the infrastructure components, including the HVAC components, including the fire suppression in particular, security components. And so having all of that in an existing building that has very low ceilings meant that we had to make once shelving got started being put in, we had to make some different decisions about what would actually physically fit. That required all of that to be in place before we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to also give a public acknowledgement to, in particular, Jay Michella, who heads our rare books and manuscripts department. All of that work to shelve 240,000 books that represent 100 classification systems, most of which are closed, meaning that we would not be adding to the end of them. And we have 4 teams of shelvers working simultaneously. It is the most complicated ballet and layout process you could possibly imagine, because you overshoot it, you don't have enough room for your collections as you're trying to flow them in. You undershoot it and you have wasted shelving in spaces that it's not useful to you. And he has done an impeccable job in terms of laying out a collection that is efficient, that is user-friendly for the staff who's going to be servicing it, that allows us the most ability for growth in places where it makes sense for growth. And in making, again, we have countless types of shelving, depths and lengths, and that is not something we've ever had. Everything was previously stored on 9-inch shelves, which is great if you are a 9-inch Quarto. It isn't great if you are a massive folio and we're hanging over the edge. So we have purpose built the space, but it also requires a lot of coordination in order to make sure that you're flowing things into the right spaces. So he and the entire Rare Books and Special Collections team have just been amazing. It's been really early mornings for us and really late evenings doing a lot of this work. And so it's kudos to them. This is, I'm not going to use the word unprecedented because I've sworn I never want to let that pass my lips anymore. I will say that this is once in a career for any of us experience. Nobody comes in knowing how to do this or with experience doing this, because this is not a thing that happens historically. The team has figured out really creative things on the fly and has also, I think, one of the things I've been talking about with David is when this is done, we need to tell this story. We need to tell the story of how we got here, what this involved, information share with peers, information share more broadly. And that, I think, is going to be a really important component of what of both for our institutional history, but also telling the story for others to understand what we've gone through.
But when you see it, it's just amazing. It's, I really wish that we had like a time lapse photo of from the beginning of to where it is now. When you walk through and you just see, I know that most of you love being in the stacks as much as I do, because that serendipitous, that proximity serendipity. You see something and you don't even know that it's next to this, and you say, oh wow, this is related, and you can visually see and take in the whole experience of the rare books and how they relate to each other. So please, see if you can get over and take a tour as soon as possible.
I don't want to do any major reveals, but we might have a time lapse documentation of this that we might be revealing at some point in time. So stay tuned for that.
Good. Well, in terms of telling the story, maybe we could do one of those high-tech drone videos that you guys produced earlier.
And it's been really interesting. We've been talking a lot about what it's going to look like when we reopen, and people don't get the experience of it's not a browsable collection, right? They're closed stacks, but there are a lot of opportunities to do walkthroughs and to demystify whether it is what stacks look like, but also what the process is of coming in to use a collection. And we are doing a lot of work thinking about how we provide the most positive experience for people who start with the question, are these for me? Am I allowed? The answer is 100% yes. But also, how do I do it if I've never done it? The seasoned researchers and scholars get it. Like they will figure it out. They do this all the time. But we have a mandate to a much broader audience, and we need to help people through that process in a way that really feels like it's welcoming and allows a clear navigation path for people to get to what they want to and not feel that they're either an imposition or is this okay if I is not a sentence we want to hear.
Thanks, Beth. Does anybody have anything else to add? Then I guess we go on to new business. I don't have anything. Does anyone else have something they'd like to bring up?
I would like to invite, I really want to celebrate Lily once again because, and ask if she wants to say anything, but she received from the Historic New England, the inaugural medal presentation, this beautiful medal at their gala. And I know, Lily, that you've been involved with Historic New England for a long time, and it's an organization that you love. And obviously it ties into not only your love of history, but also special collections. Anything you'd like to say about that evening, and where did you put the medal?
Don't tell us that. Keep that private.
You're on mute, Lily.
Sorry, I was talking to myself. I was not the only one that was honored that evening. Biddy Owens, who's been a longtime supporter of Historic New England, and I were very honored to be awarded this first medal that they had made. The medal is absolutely beautiful. It's on my bureau in a box, if you want to know where it is. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it, but it was a wonderful evening. Historic New England is a organization that owns mostly buildings, some gardens, some churches, open spaces, lots of barns, landscapes throughout New England. One property only in Vermont, but other properties all over, and their headquarters are right here on Beacon Hill at right next to the public library on Cambridge Street. The historic Harrison Gray Otis House, the first Bullfinch building that was built for the former governor Harrison Gray Otis. That was the first one. The second Harrison Gray Otis House, as you probably know, is also Bullfinch on Mount Vernon Street. And the third Harrison Gray Otis House, also Bullfinch, now the American Meteorological Society, on Beacon Street. So anyway, that Historic New England has a wonderful history. They maintain these properties as they always were, and they have collections beyond belief that came mostly, hopefully, came from the houses that they own. They also have collections that are less related, but mostly related to the houses. Great organization. I'm sorry, what was your question?
That was the question, to give us a tie-in. And we know you love the organization, and they're probably, you know, since they're so closely located to the library, that's also a place for people to go and visit and take advantage of. I know Beth knows all about it. So thank you.
Are the
Thank you.
collections, Lily, are there collections displayed at the headquarters or where?
Mostly in the houses, but they house their collections in a warehouse in Haverhill. But the collections are mostly in the houses, but they overflow into quite a large storage area.
Mhm. Well, congratulations on that award. Well
Well, I
deserved.
recommend anybody go to visit the houses that this summer. They're great. You'll enjoy it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Go
Go ahead, Priscilla, you got something else?
Yeah, we got a lot of new business because so much stuff is popping at the MFA with the fund, Jeff, and just want to go to Joe next about the literary lights. And then maybe Grace and Jeff might want to,
Sure.
and obviously Matthew might have.
Great. Thank you, Priscilla. And it was nice to see you on Sunday night. We had, after a 3-year absence, the Associates of the Boston Public Art Library held their annual Literary Lights Gala at the Boston Park Plaza Hotel. I'm not sure how many people were there, but probably about 400 or so in the beautiful ballroom. A real feeling of energy in the room, mostly just because it was great to get back in that kind of a setting. We recognized some amazing authors, had Professor Henry Louis Gates as our keynote speaker. And it was just a wonderful evening to recognize some real literary lights from around New England. So Priscilla, thank you for attending. I know I saw you and you seemed to be having a great time. I know I did. And it was a really wonderful evening to celebrate the special collections.
And David obviously was there as well.
Yes.
Alice Lee, and you guys got a $1 million anonymous gift, right?
We got a $1 million anonymous gift, which is incredible to support the work of the special collections. So really exciting.
That's great.
Yeah, and we actually managed to get through a fire alarm that inadvertently went off at the beginning of the evening. So everything, expect the unexpected, I guess, is a good mantra.
Great.
There were 2 fire alarms, if I was correct, Joe,
Yes,
right?
yeah, there were a couple.
Grace, could you talk a little bit about the exciting stuff going on, the MFA and your other places? You're on mute too. Up, Grace?
You're on mute, Grace.
I'm sorry. I probably at this point am not the best person to talk about what's going on at the MFA. I would defer to Lily, who really does know what's going on at the MFA. Lily, you want to comment?
To be honest with you, I'm probably not so great either. I've been a little bit out of my usual close touch there.
Yeah.
But I have heard that I haven't even seen it. I'm embarrassed to tell you, but I hear the Turner show that's there right now is fabulous.
Yeah.
So I hardly recommend that. And I think that exhibitions they have coming up are going to be quite exciting. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily. I'm with you. I have been a little out of touch, but I too have heard about the Turners. So really encourage everybody to go, including myself.
It's completely over the top, and so you'll get a chance to see that. I'm just looking around for any other new business. Jeff, you want to? Matthew?
Just briefly, in my capacity as president of the Association of Research Libraries, we too will be convening for the first time in Toronto for the first time in 3 years. And I mention that because BPL is a member of the Association of Research Libraries, and I've spoken to David recently, and he may or may not attend, but that's a good group for this library. So thank you.
Jabari, the book tour.
It's wrapping up. I've got two more stops, the Gaithersburg Book Festival and the American Writers Museum Festival in Chicago coming up. And then I'll be relaxing and getting ready for the publication of my next book in September.
You're prolific.
Doing my best.
And what's the new book?
The one that comes out in September is a picture book for children. It's called Me and Muhammad Ali.
Nice.
And the last person, I'll turn it, since I've disrupted your meeting completely, Ben, it was Michael. Could you talk about the poet laureate, the outgoing and the poem, and which, you know, was read at the BPL Fund meeting, which is beautiful.
Sure. Yes, Alondra was our first Boston Poet Laureate, Youth Poet Laureate. That was, it was a combined effort between the Boston Public Library and the Office of Arts and Culture. And she had a ceremony last week that David and Faruka Abuzait, our manager of youth services, presided over. She was presented with a plaque with her name and the dates and a line from one of her poems that's going to be mounted on the wall just outside of the Teen Central space. I was unfortunately not there, but I heard it was very moving. And she also was commissioned by the Boston Public Library Fund to write a poem for National Library Week and National Library Appreciation Week, which, if you look at the Boston Public Library Fund's Facebook page, you can see an amazing video of her reading the poem. And I knew she was a very talented poet, but just as a young woman, and the composure and the talent at reading her poetry, I was so impressed. It was just beautiful and just amazing. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. Or maybe I'll have Pamela send you the link so you can see it, because it's quite stunning. And we have a new.
I can send the link. I can send the link after the meeting ends.
Great.
Priscilla, this is Grace, and I just want to say that we heard the poem and it was beautiful at our last fund board meeting, and it really is stunning. Beautiful poem.
Thank you to the fund. All right, Ben, I disrupted your meeting.
No, that's good. It's good. Pamela, is there a public comment?
We do not have any members signed up for public comment.
Okay. Given that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We don't have to vote again on that, do we? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ben.
folks.
Great
Have a
meeting.
great
Beth, thank you very much.
Stay healthy.
Great meeting.
Stay healthy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.